There have been a whole lot of conversation, on our education. And this morning we have the Minister of Education in the studio. He's joined the CBS team, and we're going to have a conversation on education, everything we need to know. The recent one being is it trimester, is it semester? What is going to happen? Now there is a reversal of that decision, and so primary schools are going to go back to the trimester. But what exactly will the Education Minister be talking about this morning? We'll go over to the CBS studio, CTFM 97.3, and join the conversation.
Such stories anchors me that, yeah, there will be turbulence. But I have an anchor. And that anchor is the changing of lives. And that, to me, is what focuses me to be able to say that if only we'll stay focused, there's so much to be done to create a transformation agenda for education. By the way, I didn't say good morning to your listeners. I committed.
We've already jumped into the interview. So yeah, good morning
to your listening audience, and I do some Facebook and everywhere, and especially if you are listening to us from Bosomtwe.
Fantastic. So
good morning.
You're saying that what keeps you going is the change that you want to make and that you are making. But do you admit that these are, I don't want to use the word troubling times, but certainly concerning times for education? I'll just give two evidences. So, for example, there's been uncertainty about the calendar to use. We know the background. Initially, the semester system proposed, now gone back to trimester. There have been concerns about funding for secondary schools. Charles have made some comments. I think 24 December they did. There's been concerns about the curriculum being introduced without textbooks for it. And then there have been other issues around strikes, for example, CTAG and UTAG. All of this happening within the first 3.5 months or 4 months. What is your own assessment of what is going on in the sector that you oversee?
I think the flip side is that we've started a robust STEM program for the country. Accra STEM Academy, the president cut a short for its construction. We finished. A year from now, that school is going to be operational. Do you know that we have parents who are now contacting us as to how they can put their children on a waiting list? It's an exciting time. Then you begin to take a look at preparations we are making to open 10 brand new schools. The Kufuado schools, we call them the V block. The classroom block is shaped like a V. You go to Abomosu, you walk on the campus, and you think that you are not in Ghana in terms of infrastructure and architecture in the northern region. Kwase, Diaso, these are places where we are building school facilities that is second to none around the country. You talk about the first time we did the NST, National Standardized Test. You see, that is not to say there are no challenges, but it pales in comparison to the transformation work that is being done by the government. And that's, as I told you at the beginning, yeah, there will be turbulence. It's never a situation where you won't have any issues. Then you are not working with people. Once you work with people, concerns will come. But it's how you handle it. How you handle it and move ahead. TUTAC had a strike. Do you know that TUTAC, before Christmas, their leadership walked into my office, and I couldn't bear. I said, hey, what? I thought they had a problem, right? These are Technical University Teachers Association of Ghana. Brigandi is their president. So they walk into my office just before the Christmas, and I said, hey, they are back. There must be a problem. And they said, no. We brought you a citation to tell you that we truly appreciate the work that you did with us when we were about to go on strike, how you were able to solve the challenges together with the labor minister and finance minister, and you have followed up to this point, making sure that everything that we agreed upon, you are doing it. And we are here to give you a citation. It brought tears to my eyes that a labor union at the tertiary level will come to my office and say, we want to commend you for the able manner with which you followed through on every promise that was made to us. There may be one or two outstanding, but I'm focused on it. To get a citation from a labor union at the tertiary level, it's not a joke.
So are you suggesting that it's a question of perspective, that whereas, for example, UTAG and CTAG are on strike, TUTAG, which is also another labor union, is happy with you?
Yes.
So
they gave me a citation.
But that's fair enough, but that does not underplay the challenges that exist.
No, let me tell you. If you're a leader, right? What distinguishes you from people who may criticize you or do it. It's about the fact that you have to focus on transformation. The Ghanaian education system needs transformation. I'm not going to be distracted. No. The president brought me in to support and to help prosecute his agenda. I'm eternally focused and eternally grateful to him for the opportunity. I wake up every morning. I can't wait to go to work. Sometimes 6:30 I'm there. Super excited about the transformation that we can bring about in the Ghanaian education system.
Fair enough, but
so it doesn't mean I'm underplaying. I go to work. I'm working with people, making sure problems will be resolved.
So let's deal with them one by one. So yes, I appreciate the STEM thing. I'll come back to it. But what happened with the timetable?
Oh no!
A week ago or so, your director, one of your directors was here, Tando, and he said that we were going to run a semester system, that a committee had been put in place, and the semester system was going to synchronize all the years, basic to university. He gave all the reasons. And then he said after consultation, this was the thing permanent. Only for, I think 2 days ago, we are told that you have reversed it.
Yes, and it is very important. Leaders, you always have to accept responsibility for anything that happened under you. You can't go out and throw your agency people under the bus. All that we did was that the National Calendar Committee, after they finished their work, to meet unions and put the calendar before them and solicit any input that they had. Evidence I have indicates that the unions were with them. In fact, they conceded. When the unions met with me, some of them considered that yes, they were there at GS. But the bottom line is this. Even if they were there, and then their rank and file is up in arms, and they come to us as a minister and say, Minister, our rank and file don't like this, so please reverse it. I have to listen to both sides. GS came and made their case to stay the calendar and do the semester, and the argument was solid. The argument was that we started junior high school semester system last year, and it started before I came there, by the way. And they said, what we want to do, a lot of parents were complaining that the primary and the junior high were not syncing. Therefore, when their children are in junior high and they're on vacation, their children at the primary school are in school. And therefore, it creates some child care problem for them. It has to make sure that this child is taken care of while you drop another off. But if the schedule was the same, then if you're going to drop your children off, you drop the primary and you drop the junior high. When they're on vacation, all of them are on vacation. So I thought it was a very valid rationalization. I also asked them that, how do you go 20 weeks for a little kid? And they said, okay, we are doing a modified semester, where in the middle of the semester, you have a break. So after 10 weeks, there's a break so that the students and the teachers will rest and continue the 10 weeks. I thought it was a valid argument. Then, the moment it was rolled out, the unions come to me and say, our people are up in arms. Our teachers don't like it. I'm a leader. What do? I assess both sides and say, okay, a semester allows us to do a certain number of weeks. The same number of weeks will be done under a trimester. So if my teachers, my colleague teachers, are saying they prefer going on vacation like 2 times, right, with a trimester, instead of going on a long vacation 1 time, then GS, I called the GS people, I called the chairman of the council and I said, hey, give me reasons why this should not be reversed. At the end of the day, I made the decision that let's reverse this.
But isn't it curious? Because I thought the committee had the unions already. So why would the unions be on a different page with the committee?
No, let me tell you this. I'm not here to talk about how unions work. But what I want to tell you was that there was disagreement between GES and the unions. So if there was a disagreement, the minister should just say it's GES, therefore I should support them. So you
listen to the unions against the GES?
No, I listened to both of them.
And your judgment was that the unions were right?
No, it's not about being right. It's about what can I do to make sure the rank and file colleague teachers are happy. And if going the trimester is what will make them happy, since we are going to attain the same goal at the same number of weeks, why not? So I don't find it difficult at all to say that I'll be on the side of the teacher who believes that trimester is better.
There was a publication in the Herald today suggesting that this problem was caused by you because you don't listen to your your GES. In fact, they interviewed the former director of GES.
Oh, Chega.
Yes, who suggested that you appear to be on your own lane.
If I don't listen to them, how did I bring them together to look at how we do this? I'm not in my own lane. I want Ghana's education system to be transformed. Someone like Chega, right, is with the status quo. Chega was there when there was no NTC, there was no NACA. Everything, NASIA, everything was centered on GES, right? Even colleges of education, the teacher education program was under GES. Now, all that has gone. They are under different agencies. So when those agencies make a decision, he deems it as interference. But the OGS doesn't exist anymore. So he has the right to express his opinions, but that is not my style. I want to make sure we change the Ghanaian education system. I'll do everything under the mandate of the president to make sure we have better outcomes in this country.
So just to clarify where we are, has the semester system been ditched or just shelved or suspended?
We have a trimester system for our primary and junior high schools.
So the semester system is off. I just want to know whether it's temporary or permanent.
No, I don't make temporary. You see, this is what I'll tell you. In education, one of the beautiful things is that you always have research to prove something is right or something is wrong, right? In this particular instance, there's no research that says semester is better than a trimester. It's just used for convenience around the world. You look at the system and say, okay, this is convenient for this level, this is convenient for that. Look at Legon. Maybe some of you are too young to know that Legon went on trimester for the longest, and Tech was a semester. When we were doing semester, Legon was doing trimester. It took a long time for Legon to say, hey, let's go semester. It didn't make Legon an inferior university. Okay. Of course not. Right. But they went trimester for a long time. So some of these things are based on convenience, not so much. Okay. It doesn't say that once you do a trimester, it's a silver bullet.
Fair enough. Let's deal with the other issue. So we like free SHS, don't get me wrong. But there are people who feel that the way it's being implemented puts a lot of pressure on the government finances generally. And one manifestation of that is what we saw parts of last term. And I remember 24th December, Charles came out to say that if monies were not released before the new year, they will be forced to postpone reopening. And that's pretty serious for Charles to say, Conference of Heads Sister Schools. So it suggested either whether it's a cash flow issue or the timeliness of the release or the modus of the releases. From where you sit, what is the problem with release of monies for secondary schools? Why does Charles have to come out in a press conference to even suggest that school reopening may be deferred?
The good news is Charles is in school. The students are in school. They are being fed. I just met with them. We are planning the next academic year to make sure that all the supplies they need are provided. 2 months supplies are provided in advance of school opening. So I'll tell you this. We are doing everything possible to streamline process. For example, Ashanti region is piloting a digital storekeeping process that allows us to know what is in stock at every single school, and it's going to be extended to the entire country. So we'll be able to know that Antoine Senior High School doesn't have rice, and if you don't get them rice, in 2 weeks they will run out. So sometimes it's the logistics and the management aspect of it, which can impinge negatively on some of the things that you're doing. So if you don't look at that carefully and look at how do I streamline this. So when the headmasters came to me, I told them, I'm here to work for you, because when you do well, it reflects positively on me. And we sat down, all the logistics that needed to be was provided before the children went, and now they are in school, and we are planning next year. I've done my cash flow projections that goes to the Minister of Finance Controller so that they know exactly what I need. You see, in leadership, it's easy to point fingers and say, why is the controller doing this to me? Why is this person doing this to me? But you have to look at yourself and say, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? I think what I needed to do and we needed to do as a ministry is to get our cash flow projection just like a private company does, with graphs and visual representation that shows that by February this should be paid, by March I have to get this, by this I have to get that. Now putting it together, I have sent copies to the Minister of Finance. We are sitting down with them. We sit down with controller and say, hey, in April, we need to get this amount of money because in May they are doing their exams. And therefore, this should be there. So all that I'm saying is easy for me to sit here and say, oh, I didn't get this. But what did I do right? What did I do wrong? We have to innovate even in the public space to make sure that we're operating literally like a private businessman will operate, because cash is king.
So are you suggesting that you've dealt with it permanently, or that at least you solved it for now? I'm asking because this is not the first time we've had complaints like this. So this thing you just described that you've put in place, are you assuring Ghanaians that we are not going to hear Charles complain about this payment again? It's a permanent solution that has been put in place.
Yes, I can assure Ghanaians that based on what I've put in place, together with my conversation with the finance minister, they are clear in their minds of what my needs are, and consequently become easier for me. So it's not a knee-jerk reaction to a request from Charles. It's about getting to understand me clearly as the sector minister that this is what I need. And let me tell you this, there's nothing that the ministry, and especially the president, will not do to support free senior high school especially. And consequently, with what I've put in place, I'm of the strong belief that we'll be able to make sure that the logistics to the headmasters go on time. Because you see, I want headmasters to be instructional leaders, but they don't become instructional leaders if they are focused on getting food for their kids. So instead of spending, because in the 21st century, schools that transform, the headmaster is the instructional leader. Headmaster is sitting in the classroom. Headmaster is working.
There's nothing about where rice is coming from next.
But now the headmaster frequents the kitchen more than the classroom.
But isn't the solution to that just coming to day schools? So that the view is that you have all these people in boarding school, you have to feed them, you have to have senior house masters and all of this. Based on what you just said, wouldn't the radical solution be, you know what, we have enough secondary schools in the whole country for people to go to school from home, for only a selected few to be boarders? Would that not be a rather innovative way of solving this?
My brother, you know, one of the deficiencies of my ministry, which I'm solving now, is poor planning. Education planning. There's no division whose sole responsibility is to plan the education system and infrastructure development. So you may think there are so many senior high schools, right? But you go to communities where the nearest high school is 30 miles away. 30 miles away. So we've not placed senior high schools in locations that are in close proximity to communities as such, compared to other countries. But even the day students are fed once by their schools. Bottom line is this: we have a boarding school system, and this boarding school system is serving its intended purpose. You see, for some students, it will amaze you to know that if they stay in their home, they don't even have a place to study. There are 5 kids in a room, no desks anywhere. For some people, boarding is a necessity.
But not for everybody.
Yeah, but for those who don't, that's why we have 30% of the students enrolled in day schools. You know, Greater Accra.
Shouldn't that number be bigger?
The Greater Accra.
Shouldn't that number be bigger?
No, this is my approach. My thinking is that it should be demand driven. Right? For example, look at the school we are building in East Legon, the STEM Academy. It goes from kindergarten to senior high school. It's a day school. The quality is such that somebody in the next few years will choose that school over.
But you made it a day school for a reason.
Yeah, it's a community school, right? It's a community school. I believe that due to the nature of our high school organization that says parents have a choice as to where they want to send their children to, day schools should be so much better, right? That parents will say,
so which is what I'm pressing. So my question is that the 30% border 70-day students, based on all we know and all the data, should you not be working to change that to 70-30? Because education must be managed within the community. And you've already said that the head teacher should not be the one doing all these administrative things. It must be instructional. So my question to you is, do you agree that we need the balance of day boarding to skew more towards day, because of where we want to take educational system? And 2, are you working actively towards that?
I would say your second point, the boarding school is serving us very well now.
So we don't need to switch.
No, that's what I said. Okay. That I believe that if you are talking about, since people have a choice, you make the day schools the quality second to none. So that somebody will just say, I'd rather have my child go to this school.
Instead of you forcing.
Yeah, instead of you forcing. Because you see, Greater Accra is so innovative. With Aquinas and all these schools are there. Aquinas
That policy impose choices. Because if people realize that there's a good day school near where I live, then I don't think my son should go to boarding. And I'm also saying that because of the increased numbers, the boarding is becoming more difficult to manage.
Let me tell you. You are making a very rational argument based on research you've done. But you know, I will not sit here and say anything about it for them to say I didn't consult.
Okay, so fine, we'll take a break. I think that's a good place to pause. My guest, Dr. Adutwum, Minister for Education. He was Deputy Minister for 4 years. He's now Minister. And he's been Minister actually substantively for 1 year. 1 year and a few months. We'll come back with more questions. Let me take you on a quick break.
Less than 1 year.
When were you
appointed? When we were sworn in.
You were sworn in, is it March?
March.
Yeah, so you'll be 1 year, a couple of months. Willing to help a bit to maintain quality. He should come up with strategies to make that possible without marginalizing those who genuinely cannot. We can see and feel government is struggling. And this is Stephen. And I've received a couple of comments around this area. People in public school whose kids are in public school say we can contribute a bit more. But it doesn't seem as if we are being allowed to, either because government's hubris. PSHS, we can do it. Do contribute, Kokwi.
Yes, and in that line, Bernard, I have thoughts about the Parent-Teacher Association. You're speaking about parents who want to contribute, but we understand now whether the communication hasn't gone down well, but it's either PTA has been banned or PTA has not been banned, but heads of schools are not supposed to collect money from parents to support the school. So if the minister could please clarify from us what the situation is surrounding Parent-Teacher Associations and how parents can contribute to their ward schools.
Thank you so much. Very interesting question. I think the bottom line is that there has not been a coherent policy. So from here, I'm going to call all those watching education to be able to look at, we have to have a policy in that space. A coherent policy that guides the process. So you go to a school and the PTA is doing so well, right? Some of them even come to get money from me. and we haven't banned it. But the process, you see, before Free Senior High School came, PTAs playing active role. PTAs were collecting money to pay electricity, to pay water, to support projects. In fact, there was something called development levy. All those were PTA fees, part of the PTA. Electricity, PTA dues paid it. Water, PTA dues paid it. A number of things, textbooks, PTA dues paid it. Then the president says, if I allow these dues and levies to stay and parents have to pay for electricity, there might be students whose parents cannot pay and therefore will not be part of the Free Senior High School. So the government then absorbs the PTA dues that cover the electricity, water, and the incidentals. Now we pay ECG directly, all the bills of the schools. We pay NETCO in the north. We also pay water for the schools. So the main items that PTA dues were covering is paid for by the government, including development levy. So you have special cases where PTAs used to levy maybe to build, right? And we started the infrastructure expansion. What has been decided by GS and direction has been given to heads of schools is that PTA as a group, the parents as a group, can come together and get people to contribute. Thank God for now mobile money, right? You can maintain PTA donations easily, and a number of schools are doing it.
So are you assuring head teachers that they would not be punished? Because I remember clearly the Salamat story. You see, we covered Salamat Osu, one of the schools, and at the time they said they didn't have desks, and then some people went to give them desks. He was transferred.
No, it's not actually some people went to give them. People are giving donations all the time to schools. It's the idea that parents are being charged. You see, you'll be surprised that when school fees were in place, there are students who were sent home deprived of instruction because they have not paid PTA dues. So this is a real problem in a free senior high school environment. In other jurisdictions, where there's free secondary education and free primary education, parents still contribute. But their structures are not linked up with that of the school. They have their bank account. People can pay monies into it. They take that money. They come to the school and say, we want to build this. And then they do it, right? The problem we have is that the headmaster become an agent for the PTA. And do you know that the kind of debt that we inherited, some cases are still in court, where the parents authorize the headmaster to collect money to buy certain things, parents then come through and we are in court from vendors.
So you're going to streamline the whole PTA payment issue?
No, I really want to do that, and I'm actually have a group now working on it.
All right.
To make sure that there's a parent engagement policy.
Okay.
Which then streamlines the process. This is what you do.
Fantastic.
If you set up your PTA account, I'm even proposing that you can have one person designated at the school who maintain the PTA desk.
All right.
Where a parent can walk in and say, I want this donation to the school. And then, you see, let me give you an example of Pokwari, what the headmaster is doing. These issues came and he came to my office and said, why don't you do a development office? Development office is an office in charge of fundraising for the most part in US. And he's a US trained. So he set up a development office and he'll tell you that he gets more money for the school than when they were levying.
All right.
Because the person in charge called the parents and said, we need help.
All right.
And then the parents send their momo.
Fair enough. Cookie, there's another quick question on the calendar, which I just wanted you to bring in.
Yes. All right. So good morning, Bernard. SHS 1 and 2 students returned to school the first week of this month, January, to wrap up with their exams, and they returned home 28th January. The academic calendar for this year has not been released. Now, the dates have been released, and they are to return to school on 7th February. My question is, can't government keep the students in the school for that short period, especially those going to Form 3? It will also save parents transport fares. This is from Florence in Teshi.
When this decision was being made, there was back and forth exchange of ideas. Some people felt that you could even have continued the next academic year right from there, but others said, the children need some rest. They need a break. So there are parents who will cry and say, why did you keep my child at school and didn't come home to get the items for the next year, the gari and the shito for the next year? He didn't come. You're going to have a hue and cry from certain sections of the parent community. What we decided to do that if there's a special reason why your child is in Bolgatanga, you don't want him to come to Kumasi, let the headmaster know.
And they can stay in the school.
Yes.
Because it's just a 10-day period.
10 days.
Yes.
Some parents will want their kids at home.
Some would. And for some, it's also an inconvenience.
Yeah, for some of them. And the whole idea was that this is the new academic year. I want my child to go with all the supplies. When he was leaving, he didn't have it. Right? I didn't give him things to use for the next academic year. Maybe notebooks and other things. I didn't buy anything for him. So I want him at home. So decisions like this, you think about it and think and say, hey, what would be a better arrangement for parents? But where there's a challenge, we are willing to accommodate those.
Fair enough.
Just another quick one on the calendar, Doc. So are we sticking with this new kind of the calendar sticks with first term, January, etc.? Are we going to revert eventually back to what it used to be,
as
where fall is as in the
Infinity.
Because let me tell you this.
Yeah.
At the basic school level, even at the senior high school level until the double track came, everything was a trimester. Right? The whole
yes, but the details.
Trimester, but you know,
pre-COVID. First term is August, September.
August to
you're talking about going back to that?
Will we, or are we sticking with?
No, post-COVID we'll go back.
So
we will.
Of course, post-COVID, because COVID has interrupted everything. No. So we are now beginning school in January, right?
Yes.
And February.
Yeah.
After COVID, you see, it's going to take about a week to align.
So eventually, we'll go back to Michaelmas term, Lent term usually aligns with Easter, and then Trinity term before the long vacation.
Because look at what is happening now.
Yes.
Last year's calendar is ending this year, right? In January.
All right.
Next year, the calendar that we brought up, everything ends in December.
Fair enough.
Okay.
The following year, you start early and then you're able to push before you know it ends in October, and then the following year. So it will take about 3 years for us to really go back to the old days.
I've asked this question to some people in your ministry, but I feel it's a legitimate question. We introduced a new curriculum 3 years ago, and we do not have textbooks for that curriculum. I am told there are there's a document. There are materials that teachers have that they can use. Learning packs. But we still know the role of textbooks.
Of course.
Is this not another manifestation of confusion?
No, never. I've been very clear on this. I've been clear that in a number of places, when you introduce tests, it takes time for you to introduce curricular review. It may take time for you to get tests because of the system that we have in Ghana, especially. Many years ago, the government would empanel writers. They would put the textbook together and you just print and you are gone. Now you have to go through a procurement process, submission, review, and God helps you if you don't review right. Your head will be on the chopping block by publishers. So it's a meticulous process that takes longer than expected. Consequently, we have this issue. However, the good news is that this morning I was leaving, we have a committee that is finalizing the contracts so that publishers can go to print. So the process is too long winding. So now we are taking a cue from that. The junior high school curriculum that is in place now, they are distributing the learner packs and it will last for 1 year. During that 1 year, we're going to get their books ready so that we don't have this situation repeating itself.
The other point though is
I'm
that
not happy about it.
I know, I'm told that usually when the curriculum is rolled out internationally, every 5 years you review it.
Yes.
So if you've done 3 years already and there aren't textbooks in your third year.
Or not 3 years. We'll be into the third year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so let's assume the textbooks come within the third year. That suggests that it was in the half of the fifth year, because you review every 5 years. So in the middle of your 5 years, you now have textbooks. So in the next 2 years, you're going to review again.
The thing is this: there's no practice that says there are some textbooks that have been in place, back house, and all those things. They've been there for years. You know, there are some books that have been there for 10 years and we're using the same thing. So there's no hard and fast rule that says you change your textbooks every 5 years. No, it's not the case.
Now, I was talking about review every 5 years. I'll say review.
There can be a review of the curriculum. It doesn't mean you are changing textbooks. Teacher additions, and there may be professional development that may be offered teachers, but it doesn't mean you have to. If the textbook come now.
So what have you put in place to prevent this? You see, my question is that if in the 5th year you are reviewing the curriculum and the textbook came in the course of the 2nd year, all right, it means that by the time you have been doing a review, that curriculum hasn't been given the full length of expression to even know whether putting the teaching notes, the textbook and everything together, it worked or not.
No,
what are we going to do to prevent, because you are in your 3rd year of a new curriculum?
Now I get that point. What I'm saying is that cycle should be broken. You break that cycle by making sure that the new stretch that we're embarking upon, within the year, by the time the learner packs is about to be finished, you have to get your new textbook. So it's so much about what you learn from the first one.
I get it.
And how do you do it right?
Your friend from Kumasi High, Abranti, he asked a question for you. And Abranti for the book long, so his question will be very big.
Yeah, handsome.
I want us to look at education infrastructure, but before that, let's go to the fundamentals. Early childhood education.
Yes.
You mentioned COVID a while ago and what is being done. I travel around a lot. So during COVID, I realized that children in the rural areas were cut off.
Yes.
They were not getting anything, even though there was Ghana Learning TV and all those things. Now, question number one, as a father, I've noticed that there is no material, no proper material to help me educate my child.
At home.
At home. He was taken to school when he was 6 months old. He watches Coco Melon, Paw Patrol, and all these things.
Looks like a cartoon character.
Your ministry gets between 10 to 15 billion Ghana cedis a year. How much of this are you allocating to early childhood education to ensure that the Ghanaian parent who has to send their child to school at age 3 months, 6 months, gets proper education for them? And when they come home, especially with COVID giving us lessons, we get to train them right and not train them on CBBS and Cartoon Networks.
Yeah, the point is this. Up until this time, we've not been able to create our own Cartoon Network. Kids love cartoons. They can even download it and use it in the classroom if they were available. The good news is that the Center for National Distance Learning and Open School in St. Louis is now putting together 5 studios supported by Plant Ghana. And very soon, it will go online, and we have content development that would develop the equivalence of the cocoa melons, so that it will be Ghanaian centered and can be used in the Ghanaian education space. So we are working feverishly on it. The studios are almost completed. We are getting our license so that we can broadcast. But the content development is key. Because you see, the images in the eyes of the child, what they are forming from cocoa melon, is going to be with them for a long time to come. And we better do something in that space.
We have Letty Arts. They are Ghanaian animators.
We have
They went
Animax
to tech.
Stefan.
They have Animox Studios. There are few. So maybe you want to bring them
love
in.
to. I would love to meet them.
We've got the science set people who also makes these things we can use to teach
I
children.
would love to meet them, the animators.
You know why? My son asked me a question yesterday. He asked me, are any toys made in Ghana? Because usually when they ask for toys, it's when an auntie or cousin is coming from abroad
they
that they bring the toys.
Yeah.
So I said, what did I even say? They said, do they make toys in Ghana?
You were
And it was
And
a very
these are
difficult question
questions
to answer.
about self-affirmation and empowerment.
Yeah.
For him to know that in my country, we do these things too.
But
The
then-
Honorable Minister, I've given us a sense of what is being done. So 5 studios, work being done. I still want to go back to the budget because everything runs on money. What allocation are
No,
you
the
making
bottom,
from your
the bottom
ministry
line
for
is
that?
this: allocations are not split in terms of special ones for this, right?
Okay.
But there are special project and funding sources that come. For example, as I speak with you, we have funding to actually transform 100 kg classrooms across the country. It is being done by some Israeli group. And the kind of thing they are going to put in that room, BSW, you'll be amazed. The Pilot 100 will have everything that ought to be in a KG classroom. Something that will promote visualization.
So some of this is outside budget.
Outside budget. It's a
Okay.
special project.
Okay.
Okay. So and then the building of KG blocks across the country is also ongoing.
Okay.
So some of those things, if you want to look at the budget, because you see the Ghanaian budget, just like budgets around the world, if you look at the actual budget, you're going to see mostly salaries covered. CAPEX, CAPEX may be limited, but there are special projects that comes in. Sometimes from NGOs abroad, that comes in with special funding sources that you can then use, that the right to play and all those where they are in that space, training teachers for early childhood education. And the research have shown that children who get the opportunity of early childhood eventually do better than those who did not.
Okay.
So that space is critical. But I think one thing that is so critical there is professional development. Teaching teachers new ways of dealing with children at that age level is very critical.
Let me come back to this. You said you wanted to talk to Letty Arts and Animox. We'll introduce them to you.
Definitely.
But we've tried to introduce, and sorry I'm pushing this, Dext Technologies. So there's a Ghanaian young man who's produced a science set.
I've met him.
A science set. My kids use it.
Yeah.
So basically, using 3D printing, this is a Ghanaian who's created a system where kids can learn how to do experiments. I don't know if government has spoken to him officially. I do know that in your constituency and other places you try and get some of the schools there to use it. But if you are so focused on STEM-based education, shouldn't every basic school in Ghana have at least one of the science sets for experiments, particularly because not all of them even have labs. So if you have a science set, you can even simulate a lab within a classroom. And for you who are so committed, at least we've heard you say STEM. We should be talking to people like that.
And
shouldn't
Bernard,
we?
to add to that, you mentioned an Israeli company is coming to fix smart classrooms and all that. Just last week, in James Watson's farm, a Ghanaian company called Coral Reef fixed a smart lab somewhere in the middle of the forest for students to be able to study. I think you need to find these companies.
There are local companies
and
who can do a lot of
support
the
them.
things we bring
Like,
from
but
abroad.
You see, if I had not come here, I wouldn't have heard you talk about them. So sometimes when you sit at the ministry, that is one of the issues, and probably we can jointly do some exhibition together with City, look at innovation in education.
Oh, yes.
So that people will come there
Yes.
and showcase this, and I'll be there. There are times when somebody comes. Dext, I know about them, but some of the things you're talking about, I don't. In fact, we are creating smart schools, and I'd love to work with a company that have the expertise to make Abomusu a smart school. I've been looking. That Abomusu will be a smart school, And in Abomosu, you're going to have a smart board. You're going to have this, you're going to have that, and teachers working, and everything that they need is there based on international standards. And I would love to have that opportunity. So,
still on the STEM, so I don't have a quarrel with you wanting to build a STEM school, but I'm looking at the trend of students' achievements in WASI countries from 2018 to 2020. I'm looking at core mathematics. I'm looking at biology. I'm looking at physics. I'm looking at additional mathematics, and I'm looking at chemistry. Right? These are the basic blocks. In all of these areas, Nigeria does far better than us. So, for example, core mathematics, A1 to C6. Whereas in 2018, we had 38% of our people getting A1 to C6. Nigeria has 77%. 2019, we had 64. They had 85. 2020, we are 67, they are 74. Let me go to further mathematics as a premise to my question. Further mathematics, Ghana, A1 to C is 46. Nigeria, 76. That's 2018. 2019, Ghana, 48. Nigeria, 78. And then 2020, Ghana, 59. Nigeria, 82. Now, this is for all public schools. So my question is, aren't we putting a bit of the cart before the horse? Because we want STEM to be strong. You probably want the basic Ghanaian person who does basic science in every school to do well. Then you can also build a STEM school or whatever for people who want to specialize in STEM. So and we have almost 1,000 senior high schools in Ghana, and they are producing these results, which Nigeria is superior, and Nigeria has a bigger base. So if Nigeria have more students, is doing 78%, we're doing 45%. Shouldn't your focus be more on the public schools and how to improve science outcomes, in addition to whatever STEM school you want to build?
Yeah, very important question. I love it because you gave me the opportunity to explain something to the people of Ghana. 1987 education reform changed our 7-year secondary system. You went to O level, A level, you have 7 years. At the upper end of secondary, for those who came from poor backgrounds, you go to middle school. If you happen to come from a good, I don't want to say good home, an advantage home, you skip middle school, went straight to secondary from primary 6. You spent 7 years there. So your nephew, if you went to Fansipim, you spent 7 years there. Now your nephew go and spend 3 years. And know what we did to this country? We decided to borrow the American system of 3+3, which means you have 6-year secondary. But we decided that the first 3 should take place in the old middle school buildings, where there are no science labs, where there are no libraries, and where there are no graduate teachers. So since 1987, we did damage. We've done damage to the education system. Why is Nigeria producing those excellent scores? Because their secondary is 6 years. The upper secondary. They have lower and upper secondary co-locating.
So their GSS and SSS is in the
co-locate.
same school.
Same headmaster. Same group of teachers.
Wow.
So they have true 6-year secondary. We have given our first 3 years, thrown it away.
As a basic.
As a basic.
No labs, no
labs, nothing. No library, nothing. So if you look at what the government is doing now, building new junior high schools, lower secondary, with same facilities as high schools. That is how you change this paradigm. Because they took 6 years at the upper end. Then we shifted the first 3 years, which is secondary, shifted it to basic. They wear the same uniforms as the little kids, taught by the same teachers. No library.
Is that the defining difference between us and the Nigerians?
Yes.
So even though they have SSS,
yes,
they have the school, the head teacher of the secondary school has 6 years with the students.
Yes.
But our secondary school have 3 years with the students.
So what
are you going to do about that?
So now we've started. There are about 15 schools under construction now. One of my favorite one is at Onye and Abanas. And the reason I'm saying it's my favorite one is that when that school is completed, we are shutting down 12 old middle schools that we call junior high.
So is that an experiment you are doing?
Yes.
To see how it's going to change.
So you take the 12 schools, you shut the 12 schools down, move all the students to this beautiful building called lower secondary, where the circle supervisor can spend 3 days because he doesn't have to go to 12 schools.
But let me ask you a question. That could be one solution. Couldn't the other solution be, okay, now you have GSSs all over. Now you have 14,000 junior high schools. So you obviously cannot put all of them in a senior high school. So you could say, let's upgrade these junior high schools by, for example, raising the level of a GSS teacher to the level of the SSS teacher, improving the labs, because you're talking about the infrastructure initially and then the level of supervision and the quality of supervision. But the ratio of JSS to SHS is such that
it really doesn't. You cannot, as you said, improve the junior high schools individually.
No,
because it means every junior high school you need a lab, right?
Yes.
And there are 14,000 of them. How do you do that?
So we can't afford it.
But are you going to squeeze all those junior high school students into the SHSs?
No.
But they don't have enough space for them.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
How are you going to do it?
I'm saying that instead of building a lab in every school and a community with 12 junior high schools, you go to Judgment with 15 junior high schools and there's one secondary. Why? We've not been planning and we've not been thinking. Because if I plan well, I can put up one building that brings in students from 10 schools. Let me tell you.
So the 12 junior high schools in that community will have access to one lab, being supervised by the secondary school or what?
No. There are 2 ways of doing this. You can still think co-location, that any senior high school that you are building, the junior high school students in that community will go to school there. Like, let's say Abomosu, right? You have a huge facility for senior high. Meanwhile, the children from that community may be going to some rundown
junior high school.
What stops us by saying the children from this
can
community
also benefit from the
by
lab there,
doing their junior high school there on that campus, co-locate them.
I get you.
That's another way. Another way is that if you can do the co-location that Nigerians have done, then upgrade your junior high schools to have the same thing as high schools.
Which is easier, which is more tenable.
Actually, the thing is, I see some senior high schools where we are currently working on them, and there's land. If you put up just one block, the children from that community may just be 100. They can go to school there. So we shouldn't be tied. Our hands shouldn't be tied to a system that says this is junior high school, therefore they should go to that rundown building. Meanwhile, senior high school is here. And they are going to be day students anyway. They are from the community.
Maybe you should open this up for debate as well and discussion
and
as to how to improve the quality of our JSS.
I'm careful as to what to say. I'm responding to your questions because they will say I did policy without consultation.
No. That's why the purpose of the interview is to get your mind and your vision. The fact that this is what you think about education doesn't translate into a policy. The last question on this. So some people criticize you for not putting out, for example, these STEM high schools. They haven't seen a policy document in a sector that has a lot of rich discussion. There should be some document we can see to say this is what the STEM schools thing is going to do. I haven't seen a policy document. I don't know if there is anything like that.
Now we have a which we'll be releasing sometime next week. The issue is that when you talk STEM education, you are not just talking about STEM schools. Just like we were talking about DEST, right? We have a basic STEM program, which means you incorporate STEM program and activities into all schools. Then you have schools that there's some kind of concentration in terms of activities that are done there. Do you, as you rightly pointed out, you realize that in Ghana, we talk about 60-40, right? 60% STEM related, 40% humanities at our universities. And I always ask people, how do you get that outcome when you look at secondary education and only about 12% in a good year, 15% of students do science? So how does 15% become 60%? In a system where we say to ourselves that if you did not do science in high school, if you wake up and God tells you you're going to be the world's best engineer, you have to tell God no, because I did visual arts. Meanwhile, these same students, if they have the fierce determination, go to UK and US, they will allow them to do engineering and do other science-related things.
Changing that policy.
So the thing is this.
We want to see the policy document. That's what we're asking for.
So yes. Now, what I'm saying is this. We want to break barriers. Break barriers. Visual arts students, to me, are the smartest group of young men that we have and women that we have in this country. These are creative minds. They can sit here and draw you, design a whole lot of things, but they are the ones we say are not smart, and therefore will not allow them in certain courses and in certain spaces. So when UMAT agreed that they would do a pre-engineering program, which I gladly supported, what it meant was that now we have opportunity. This year, we're going to have 200 students who did business, visuals, generals, and can change their minds.
All right, we'll read some comments, but before that, could you ask another question? Then we'll read some more comments.
I need an update on the e-blocks issue.
Yeah.
There are quite a lot around the country. Some have been completed. A lot of them have also not been completed. Can you give us timelines based on your scheduling when the e-blocks will be done?
You see, timelines are all subject to availability of funding. Because you see, the interesting thing about what happened to us in this country for many years was when you start a project and you don't have dedicated funding source, you leave it to the mercy of whether monies will come through or monies will not come through the GET fund. So, for example, the World Bank provided support for the construction of 23 e-blocks. They are all completed because the money was there. So you know what to do, how to pay contractors. Then the rest of them, aside from 101 of them, was commissioned, started based on the idea that some money will come through. No dedicated source. Too many of them at one time. And then the idea was that in case GET Fund gets some funding, we will complete all these buildings. With that making a projection that this year, GET Fund money that is coming is this amount. Therefore, we'll do 20 of them. When we finish, then we'll do another 20 because we know that next year the GET Fund money that will come in will help us do 20. So we did this, and as I've always said, I will not criticize any government that embarks on education infrastructure expansion. Because if you look at the school that President Mahama and President Mills built at Kwabenya, it's packed with students. We've even added a 2-story building. GMPs has done 1 story, and it's still packed with students. Frafraha, the same thing. Agrikin's Mine in Kumasi, these were all projects done by President Mills Mahama, and they are serving the needs of Ghanaian children and the Ghanaian education. So I won't sit here and say that because NDC did something is bad. But what I say is that couldn't we have planned this right? For example, you go to Nsaura. Nsaura, my brother Honorable Tete's constituency. Beautiful E-block building. But the children are walking 10 miles, 15 miles away. Some of them had to come and live with family with all issues going on. Now, what the president directed us to do, that in the case of Nsaura and other schools, we should build dormitory blocks there. The good news, the girls' dormitory block is completed, is going to be used when students return. So my issue is therefore, 1, no dedicated source of fund. But even under all that circumstance, we've been able to complete about 29 of them since we've been to pass. So it's not abandoned.
So, Honorable, I'm asking this question based on the fact that you are sitting at the top of the education ministry.
Yes, sir.
You know the inflows coming in through the GET Fund. You know what is coming through wherever, you know. So, based on your allocation of resources and your vision for infrastructure improvement for the sector, when can we have the e-blocks working? We know the challenges.
We've done 29.
But you are not abandoning them. You want to build them. So when can we?
No. Some left, of course.
When can we have all of them?
I don't know.
You don't know.
It depends upon how much money will come in.
Okay.
So,
my final question with to you: students pay for exams, and they are supposed to get their results. But in this country, when we are digitalizing stuff, it becomes a burden, so they have to pay to get their results, even though they pay to be examined. Number 2,
this is WASI
and other things. Teachers go for interviews, they get appointments, and they have to pay on a digital platform to get their appointment letters. I think this is unfair.
I don't know about that.
Oh, it's
and I will look into it, but I don't know that teachers have to pay to get their appointment.
The letter circulated to students suggested that their postings have been done, but they have to sign on to a platform which they have to pay.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
But at least for the basic education, you know.
That
for results.
WAEC results.
Yes, results.
Oh yeah, the scratch card.
Is that fair?
I know.
It's not fair. Really.
Because if I pay for
a service, I have
to pay for SAT. Once I pay my results, I'm entitled to know. If I pay for GMAT, I know my results. Why do I have to pay
again
to write an exam and then pay for the
Which
results?
I paid you to.
No, I mean, you are making a valid point. The good news is that WAEC fees are paid for by government. But if you're a private candidate, of course, you pay your own thing. But I think you make a valid point, and I will look into it.
Okay. All right. A quick one, Doc, on arts in education and sports in education. Now, we want to prepare our children to be great citizens of the world, compete globally in so many areas, right? Now, we know about the Creative Arts High School that is being built, which fantastic initiative. But what's the situation in our schools in general with regards to the creative and performing arts and sports? Sports that is properly organized, that gives children the chance to display their talents, such that we can nurture the talents that we need to compete in global sporting events. So I just want to find out from you what the education ministry is thinking about with regard to these two areas.
Now, let me tell you one thing. There are so many gaps, and the gaps has to be bridged for 21st century transformation of our country. So I agree with you that something needs to be done differently. For example, as you talk about performing arts, there's no performing arts elective or pathway, but there's visual arts.
Yes.
So I always ask people, how can you have visual arts and desert completely creative arts? So the Creative Art High School that is coming offers us that opportunity for us to even look at how do you can even do visual performing arts.
Yes.
So the students are balanced. So you don't go to university to look at performing arts.
Right.
And you have no idea. And then the interesting thing is you go to schools and they are doing a speech and prize giving day, and the girls are performing, the young men are performing, they are singing, they are doing. I say to myself, something can be done. So I take your suggestion seriously.
Not to mention how the industry is booming, as we can see.
Yeah, and that is why the Creative Art High School idea is very good. So at least you're going to have some bright minds from across the country recruited through auditions.
Oh, they'll be recruited?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Through auditions. And the goal is to make sure you can get those people from across the country, since it's a boarding school, and then put them in there. And we are developing a curriculum with industry to do it in such a way that's practical and real, and it's not about any book memorization.
Exactly.
So I'm excited that it can also serve as a platform for the transformation of the creative art courses in other schools that may not be may not have the opportunity of the Creative Arts High School in Kwadaso.
And sports.
Yeah, you see, the sports thing is this. As you can rightly pointed out, we don't have one sports high school, for example. Australia, they have them, right? So I was having a conversation with the Minister for Youth and Sports and talk about a sports academy in Winneba, which can easily be operationalized. But that does not mean that we shouldn't look at sports in schools.
Yes.
Every school. Yeah. I went to a school that was strong in sports, Kumasi High School. Yeah, and I believe that it's another avenue. And it's not just for the fun of it. But you're talking about talents being harnessed and talents that can also lead to wealth creation. So I think it's important that we take a look at all that. But as you know, there are a lot of things to be done.
Resources.
And I don't want to be accused as the minister who changed everything.
Okay. I think you are getting a lot of that.
A lot
we'll
of
read
that.
A few comments and then you pick some and answer. Could we just
Yes.
go through
Okay.
quickly?
WAEC exams. When WAEC exams are replaced, can students apply for schools abroad with their new certificates? That's from Sewa in Dansoman. There's talk of BCE, for instance, being eliminated.
No, that's a talk. I haven't seen.
So that's not going to happen. Okay, all right. Bernard, please ask the minister when they'll do graduate recruitment. There's a Tanga from Bongo.
This morning, for example, we are sending it because they did the basic schools clearance for us. Now we are going to request for graduate clearance, and once we get it, we will.
Good.
All right. Hudu from Daboya says, how do you expect teachers to implement the Common Core Program, or CCP, if they're not paid their training, TNT, and allowances after attending the workshop for the past 2 weeks? And then he also wanted to find out about textbooks.
The good news is that I know I've released funds to GES to pay that. So when I go there, I'm going to follow up with them.
Okay, here's one regarding grades. The Ghanaian child cannot go to university because they had D7 in maths, which is a pass. A lot of kids are home because maths alone is the reason they're home. What can be done immediately for these kids who are still struggling with only D7 in maths?
I've asked GTech together with their board to come up with a policy that we can get approval for in cabinet. I believe that if you have D7 in mathematics, and we believe math is very important for the course that you're going to pursue, you should be allowed in. But rather, you should be giving math 101 when you get to the university. Strengthen your math skills. I really don't understand. while you hold the child back with D7, without bringing them in and offering them a math class at the university. So if you were to go to any other country, that's what they would do.
Right.
They would say, hey, your math is weak. Therefore, unlike your colleagues, you are going to do math 99, which may be below university level. And by the way, you have to do math 100 because your math is weak.
So they can rather strengthen your math instead of keeping you home. So something you want to push. Finally, there's a steady decline in TVET financing. We spoke to FOSDA, we've seen the data.
TVET?
Yes, TVET financing from government compared to other sectors of education is in a steady decline.
No.
You want to find out and comment on that?
No, the thing is this. You see, that's why I said that you'll be making a mistake when you look at the budget without looking at the allocation coming. You see, if you look at the amount of money we spend from AVIC, right? The kind of every NVTI school is getting new infrastructure. Every one of them. So if you go and look at the national budget without looking at the appendices, you will not know the kind of expenditure that is taking place. For example, you have 35 STEM schools that are going to be built in this country. They are in the appendix 10C of the budget. But if you don't take a look at that and the cost, and you just look at CAPEX and say, oh, nothing was allocated for CAPEX. But meanwhile, if you go to the appendices, a lot of money is coming from there to support education.
Right.
TVET schools, 12 of them, 8 of them post-secondary, are being funded by the government, but it's not going to be in your budget.
We'll leave it here. Thank you for coming. Obviously, there are a lot more questions than we could put through, but we didn't have so much time. But thank you. We wish you well. I hope we can make some time again to talk. And you also promised to come and teach more maths on
my favorite thing to do.
On
the class
act. So when are you going to teach the maths? What subject, what topic will you teach?
What topic? I'll probably do indices. My son is doing indices at home, and
indices.
And I'm working with him. Exponents. Some people call exponents.
Indices.
And I'm working with him, so probably that would be a good way
come and
to
teach.
To teach exponential equations and all
we'll look
fun stuff.
We'll look forward to that. Thank you. Dr. Adutwum is the Minister for Education. Lots of questions coming through. We will apologize we couldn't read some of them, but hopefully you've gotten a clearer sense of where he stands, and it's a work in progress. He will come back as the month progresses. So